And welcome back to another episode of Casey Campbell's Videocast. Of course, I'm Casey Campbell from Great Lakes Post, and welcoming my good friend Charlie Kimball, the driver of the number 4 Novo Nordisk Chevrolet for AJ Foyt Racing. That sounds good to say. Charlie, how you
Sure
holding
is.
up?
Yeah, hanging in there. It's been busy. It's been hard. My wife and I welcomed our second child into the family about 6 weeks ago, just before St. Pete. So having two kids under the age of 18 months without any help, without any grandparents around has been busy, but it's been nice to be home to spend that time with them. While I'd rather be at the racetrack working with my AJ Foyt team, it's nice to be home with the kids.
Yeah, I know before everything got canceled and looking at, let's talk about this new team. I know you were with Carlin the last few years, and then before that Ganassi. But what intrigues you to come to this team? I know you had your longtime sponsor Novo Nordisk come on help you out. What was the biggest thing that sold you to AJ Foyt Racing?
Well, I think honestly, it's the people. I think Larry, AJ, the opportunity to drive for the first four-time winner of the Indianapolis 500 is extremely special. And I think anyone who works in racing, even if it's not an Indycar, but globally, you know the name AJ Foyt. I think he's probably a handful of names that are in racing that people know about the Indy 500. And, Foyt, Mears, Rutherford, Andretti, Unser probably. There are a couple more I'm probably missing, but it's amazing to work for him and his history. And I was at a photo shoot at the shop in early February down in Texas, and like I had to pinch myself that AJ Foyt just like walks in and we start chatting and he talks about races and his engineering and his history, and he still has an incredible feel for the race car and what it takes to be successful. And I think it comes down to the people. They've got great engineers and great mechanics and great crew. Um, and the management. I mean, I worked with Scott Harner for years at Chip Ganassi Racing, and so it's nice to be working with him again at AJ Foyt Racing. And I think it's hard in IndyCar when you don't start with good momentum. It's easy to get lost and easy to dig yourself a hole. And I think one of the best advices I got from pieces of advice, excuse me, I got from my dad growing up was, if you're digging yourself a hole, the first thing to stop is to put down the shovel. And I think as a reset for a team, we are working towards rebuilding intelligently. It's not like we expect to go out the first race we're on track and win every race. It's the IndyCar series. It's way too competitive to do that. But we want to make incremental foundational changes that create lasting results long term.
Um, it's out there that with your partner Novo Nordisk, you are diabetic. What are some of the challenges with that?
In the race car, my IndyCar is different than everyone else's because my body's different. I have to manually adjust my blood glucose. The carbohydrates that I eat raise my blood sugar, and the insulin that Novo Nordisk makes that I've been taking since the day I was diagnosed back in 2007 brings that blood sugar back down. And I've got to keep it kind of in the middle of the road. And so in the race car, when I can't call timeout, I can't get a snack at halftime, I've got to make sure I'm good to go from green flag to checkered flag. And that comes down to my preparation and management before I get in the cockpit. But also in the car, I mentioned some differences. I wear a continuous glucose monitor, and that sensor transmits to a display that actually plugs into the car's data system. So on my steering wheel, I have speed, lap time, oil pressure, blood sugar, water temperature, gear, my car, and my body data right there together. So I can keep track of what's happening in the car and in my body.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. So coming 6 weeks ago, you had your first child, second child, I mean, with all the, right in the middle of the flu restrictions and the COVID-19 restrictions. So what was that like, and what were some of the restrictions like?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for that was that our daughter couldn't come meet her younger brother in the hospital. And we were under time constraints because we had our son on Wednesday, and I left first thing Thursday morning to fly down to St. Pete for the first race.
Right.
And we'd been in the hospital for a couple of days with delivery. So it was busy. And I think, like I said, the biggest disappointment, we got great care in the hospital, and the restrictions weren't really impactful except for not being able to bring our daughter to meet her younger brother right away.
What's some of the challenges, with young kids in this pandemic? Because I know there's a lot of people struggling with, trying to take care of your kids. And I'm sure they're wondering, where's grandma? Where's grandpa? Why aren't they here? And all that. What are some of the advice that you have for young parents?
I think a lot of families are struggling. We talk with our neighbors, through text message and porch to porch, because they have young kids that their school's suspended through the end of the year, and they're doing e-learning and they have lessons at home. And it's amazing how much input teachers have. And for us, our kids aren't in school yet. So it's how much input, grandma who lives here in town has. My mom, who lives out in California, was planning to come out for a week, 10 days, and spend time with her new grandson. Obviously, those plans got shelved. So we've had to figure out how to continue to teach and develop, and also stay sane ourselves. When I think one of the things I was talking with my neighbor about yesterday, she was saying that her middle son is really struggling because her youngest son just wants to be attached to him all the time. Well, when they were in school, they dropped him off at school, and the middle son had his own social set. He had his own group of friends. And so family units are figuring out how to be social units and educators. And I think my best piece of advice is to take care of yourself, because if you're not doing a good job of taking care of yourself, if it's good nutritional choices, if it's exercise however you can, if the weather's good outside, even just going for a walk with your family can be really, really healthy and help that mental side. If you take care of yourself, it'll help you take care of your family. And that's something that I found. My wife and I had a lot of communication about, man, I'm struggling today. Like it's hard. I didn't sleep well and I need a little help. And it's like, all right, that's when, if I'm struggling, that's when my wife picks up the slack and makes sure that the kids are taken care of and I get a little extra time for me, and vice versa. And I think it really is, these are unprecedented times, and figuring out how to make it work is quite the challenge.
When IndyCar does get back, I was talking to Bob Pockris, who covers NASCAR. He says NASCAR could look very different when it comes back, and I'm sure IndyCar is going to look a lot similar, different as well. Looks like Texas could possibly be the first race, and possibly we could see a NASCAR IndyCar doubleheader if Eddie Gossage gets his way. We're going to see that later this year when we go to Indianapolis. What's it like to have NASCAR, IndyCar together? Because I know that's something that everybody wants.
I think it's great. I think it's great for the fans. It's great for us as drivers. Me personally, as an IndyCar driver, I have a lot of respect for what those guys do. Jimmy Johnson and Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Gordon, even some of the younger guys, excuse me, are like household names. And for me growing up, watching those guys race in IndyCar or in NASCAR, excuse me. Well, as I was trying to work my way towards IndyCar, the chance to share a track at different times is going to be really neat. And I think it's a great opportunity to showcase the highlights of both, because we're very different race series with very different highlights and very different looking cars. That doesn't mean we're not each great racing. And I think if you're a race fan and you come out on that July 4th, July 5th weekend to see the AMR Grand Prix of Indianapolis plus the Brickyard 400, you're going to see great racing just from very different drivers and very different cars.
The Indianapolis 500 in August, that's, I think with everything getting moved around, I'm like, I think, when all these events eventually do come back, because they are going to come back, the question is when. But when it does come back, do you think that people are going to have more appreciation for not just IndyCar, but all sports in general.
I think live sports are people are missing them. I am. I'm a big Dodgers fan. I love sitting down on a Sunday night after the kids go to bed and after Hannah goes to bed, putting a Dodgers game on. Sunday night baseball and catching up on some work, doing some office work, but having a baseball game in the background and live sports just aren't there. There's not that destination viewing. I think there was an ESPN documentary, in the last week or so about Michael Jordan, and it was like destination viewing because there wasn't the same saturation of live sports. And so when live sports do come back, and I believe they will, that it will look different for a little while, but I think it will come back, and I think people will be really hungry to have that experience again.
Yeah. The challenges, I don't know, the challenges of, racing with a new team and then this happens. How much communication have you had with the team?
Well, I've been talking to my engineer, texting him. We went through a whole lot before we started to get ready for St. Pete. And so we're sort of circling back on some of those things and making sure we're all on the same page, communication wise, vernacular things. I like to see things I've done in the past that have worked, things that haven't worked, what I like out of the car, stuff like that. I like to know a lot going into the weekend. I like to have a good battle plan, so to speak. And I know they say that, no good battle plan survives first contact with the enemy. That first lap of practice one, a lot of times the plan goes out the window, but at least we have a good concept going into the race weekend of how we want it to play out. And we always refer back to that. So having that strong plan and working on those plans for all the different races, as the schedules continued to evolve, we've continued to evolve our plans and thought processes going forward.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and we'll definitely be talking as the season eventually does get started, and enjoy taking care of your kids, and hopefully we'll see you guys back out on the track soon in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. Thanks, Casey. We look forward to seeing you at a track soon.
Yeah.